All right, so we left off with a login form. Now it's time that we make a registration form as well as a register view. And we're going to do this using model form. Model form is not a whole lot different than the built-in form itself, but instead it uses a model, so like our user model or blog model, so we've already seen model forms before, as we've seen with the post form. So it's going to be very similar to that post form there, but we're going to be doing it for the user itself. And of course, remember, we're not doing a custom user model. If you wanted to do custom user models, definitely check out joincfe.com because we show you how to do it there. But for now, we're going to make a user register form, and it's going to be forms.modelForm. And we want to give some space here. And I'll just declare class meta model equals to user. And again, that meta class, as it relates to form or admin, it has to do with anything that's not a field. So like a password, or that password is a field, username is a field. And in meta, we also want to say what fields we want to use from the user model itself, not actually creating new fields, which we're going to do username, email, and password. Cool. So that's all we're going to do for the model form. Now that we have this, we just want to render it. So let's go ahead and import this into our views for accounts, just like we did with the login view. And we're going to stick with the form.html. And I'm also going to have a title. So let's add a couple things for our context here. Title would be register. And then the form is the user registration form or user register form, post or none. So request, post, or none. And then we'll worry about the rest in a second. I'm going to add a context here and say form is form, and then title is title. This context dictionary, we now want to pass it into our render function. Again, all this stuff should be a little bit repetitive, but now that we have this, let's go ahead and add this into our URLs for our main site here. So inside of blog URLs, we already have the register view imported, so we can just go ahead and copy one of either the login or logout URL and just change this into register. A lot of things that are definitely repetitive to what we've done, but it's something we need to do. So now we have register, and here we go. So this is actually a user registration form. Notice it's saying username and it's required. So if I hit register, it shows me the different required things. Now in this case, I actually want email address to be required, and right from the very start, I want email to be unique. This is a little difficult because we're not actually changing the model for the user. So these are default things, right? So the username is a default thing, and it's default to being unique, right? It cannot be the same user. So I think we have one called ABC that's already registered, and it'll say a user with that name already exists. But also with registration, the real big thing that we want to worry about is making sure their email address is correct, because sometimes spelling errors happen. So more so than making sure that they confirm their password twice or even their username, we're going to make them confirm their email address twice. And that's something that I think is really important to do in a form. And we want to do this in a very simple way. It's just a matter of adding another field in here. So we'll call it email2, and it's forms.email field. And this is pretty much what we're going to be doing. And we're going to add a label here, and we're going to call it confirm email. And then we're going to go back into our page here and take a look. And what we'll see now is we have confirm email down here. Our password is not a input, right? It's actually showing the password, which is not what we want. So let's go ahead and copy the user login form, the password for that, and bring it down here. Paste it and save. Let's go back in, we refresh, and what we see here is email address password. We type in the password, it's a password. But we also notice that email address is not required, right? Confirm email is, but email address is not. So we want to make sure that they both are required, and also the ordering of these things isn't that great. So let's go ahead and copy the email again. I'll explain why this happens this way in just a second. We'll say email address and save it, refresh in here. We don't need to submit the form, but what we see here now is email address is now required and confirm email is down there. So what's happening is this is just overriding the default field that we have put in. And then email 2 is just an additional field that really is not going to make a difference to the user model itself, but it is an additional field that we can work with, which is kind of cool. And as far as the ordering is concerned, we can just add in email to here, save that, and refresh, and now it will reorder these things. So you can actually change, this is how you would actually change the order of how those fields would be rendered. And like just like up here, if you change the order here, that would also be the same sort of thing. Cool. So now that we've got this, we have a registration form working, but I do want to make sure that the emails match. And we're going to be doing this with a method called clean. So clean email, and it's going to take self. So first of all, we're going to do email equals to self.cleanedData.get, and it's going to be email. So it's that first email. And then email 2 is going to be the same thing, except email 2. And we'll say if email is not equal to email 2, we'll do raise forms.validation error, and we'll say emails must match. All right, and then otherwise we'll return email. So if it doesn't work out, then we'll just return the original email, refresh in here, and we hit register. Notice the fields are required, so we'll just make up some stuff, and I will first of all make a email not match, hit register, and it'll say emails must match. So then we just match them and put a password field. Notice the password field goes away. So it's still saying emails must match. And let's go ahead and take a look as to why. So we're going to jump into our email stuff, and we'll print out email and email 2. And while we're at it, we might as well just print out self.cleanedData as well, just to see what that is. So let's go back in, submit it, and we're still getting that email must match. And what we see in the clean data is it's only giving us username and email. So let's just do one thing here, and I'm going to just change the order of email 2 and email, and we'll try that again. Hit continue. That goes away. And now what we see here is email 2 and email. Right, so the actual order makes a difference to how this clean works. So if I change this down here to email 2, we're going to have that same problem, and it's going to say emails must match, right? So now what we basically need to worry about, I'm going to change this to email and then down here to email 2. So the clean methods are going to be organized in the way that they actually come through. There is another way to do this, which I'll show you in just a second, but as far as getting it right on the field, this is a really good validation error itself. There is one more validation that I want to do, is check if the email actually exists already inside of the database. So I'm going to make a new variable called email QS for email query set, and we'll do user.objects.filter, and we'll say email equals to email. And then we'll say if email QS dot exists, with the parentheses, we're going to raise the forms.validation error and say this email has already been registered. So we're not really doing a whole lot of actual on the model validation, but it is for the form. Now, if you wanted this proper, you would build a custom model, so a custom user model that would have email being unique. But again, we're not going to be covering that here. All right, so now that we get this, let's go ahead and get rid of this data here. And you might be wondering, well, what if I didn't know the order worked, or what if the order, something with the order is not actually working? You can override the just clean method itself. So you can do self, args, and keyword args, and then you could do the exact same stuff. So you just go ahead and copy this, and then you can return the super, and this would be user register form, self, and .clean, and then args and keyword args. So this clean method is going to also do it, but it won't be right on the field itself. So if I comment this out, notice if you remember the error actually, or the field error comes up right on the field. Now with the clean method, it's going to be just slightly different. So if I change it and hit register, let's make sure we're saved up, and let's refresh in here and try another email. Let's do that again. Hit register, and now it gives us a non-field error, right? So it's not actually going to the field, but the validation is still there. I'm going to keep it on the field itself. You can have it in both places, but it's a little bit redundant to have it in two places because, well, the field error works just fine. So I'm going to go ahead and comment this out and leave it in there so you guys can use it at any point. But now that we've got this registration form, all we need to do is complete the registration process inside of our view. And that is fairly straightforward because we now have this form data, right? So we'll say if form.isValid, as we've seen time and time again. We're going to say user equals to form.save, commit equals to false, and then user.set password. We want to get the actual password from the form, so we'll do password equals to form.cleanedData.get password. And then we're going to use that set password method. This is a built-in method for the user model. And then we'll do user.save. And then finally, we will do login the request and the user. And we might as well print out whether or not this user is authenticated right on side of the register view. And then we want to return something here at some point. So let's go ahead and try this out. And we'll jump back in, register, and I'm just going to do some random username again. Oops. Random username, and just paste these in here. Hit register, and we're getting user object has no attribute backend. So we've got a little issue there, but before we jump into login, let's actually see if the user is saved by going into the admin. And we do have a user in here. The password's good. Everything else is good. So everything except for the login function is good. So that might mean we need to do one more step, just like what we did in the actual login view. We want to do this authenticate one. So let's go ahead and do that. And we'll use user. And I'll just say new user instead of user to not confuse it with the instance that we created. So we'll say new user. We're going to log that in, and the username is going to just be user.username. Password can be the exact same password that we got on the form. And now let's try that again. And let's go into register, and I'll try it one more time with a different username, of course, because we've already tried the other one. And finally, we hit register. Doesn't look like anything happened, at least an error didn't happen. So if we go into terminal and now click on register again, we now see true. This user is authenticated. Cool. So that is a very basic registration view. Notice this authenticate was important for the login part. It actually authenticates the user, and then you can actually log in from there. So just by having the user model and trying to log them in, it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to work. Cool. So this actually creates a session and does all sorts of things for us. All right. Now that we have got this, let's actually do that redirect stuff. And I'm just going to import redirect. And now after the login stuff, everything with the register and login, we're going to return redirect. And I'm just going to go to the home page or the index page on each one. There we go. And lastly, logout view, I will do that exact same thing. There we go. So now that we've got this, I'm going to change one more thing about the blog is I'm going to put the posts on the homepage. So now the homepage will be posts.url, but I'm going to put this at the very bottom. So we save that and we refresh. I'm going to show you exactly why in a second. So now our posts are on the homepage. So now it's like officially a blog homepage. If I put this at the very top, right? If I put this URL expression at the very top, it might work for us. But let's go into like admin, and it's now saying no post matching query exists. Whereas if I change this URL pattern and put it last, I will now be able to actually go into the admin. So there's a really important reason for this is because of how URL patterns match. It's going to get the first pattern that matches. It's going to stop there. Where this one, it doesn't actually have a pattern that matches. It won't stop essentially because of how our URLs are, right? So the slug right here is always going to look for something like an admin. In that case, it said post is not found with admin. Anyways, okay, so that is our URLs. They're all set up. There is one more thing that we can test, and that is comments. Now that we're logged in as a different user, and I'll say, hi there, new user, post that comment, and we see hi there, new user. Pretty cool. So it says via ABC. we can go to this new comment thread and say hello there and reply. And now this comment thread, we should see hello there. Perfect. So it's actually working the way we want it to. Now our URLs also do not have posts in front of it. Instead, it's just a new slug, right? So that's pretty cool as far as how posts would work on a blog in general. Again, this part is not required, but I just wanted to do it to make this project actually just be a blog completely, and that's really what it is. So now that we have log in and log out, we can log out and do that. The comments thing, we probably want to have a comment model that does not allow anonymous user. So that's something else that we might want to add, and that's little things like that we'll add in the next one. If you have any questions on what we did, let us know. Otherwise, let's keep going.